They marched in like tiny storm clouds, 3 7-year-olds with teary eyes and steel in their spines, demanding the one thing their mother, Dr. Grace Johnson, feared most: the truth. For years, she'd patched every question with the same threadbare word: complicated, but tonight, the fabric finally split. Online searches, whispered calls, and a plan outrageous enough to make angels flinch led them to Adrian Cole, the billionaire stranger whose eyes mirrored theirs. One bold lie in a restaurant alley. One handful of science project sleeping powder. One stunned man tied to a wheelchair on their front porch, and a mother whose silence detonated into secrets 8 years deep. What began as a child's egg becomes a family reckoning, where love and pride collide, and 3 small hurricanes refuse to let destiny hide. Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop your location and local time in the comments. And if you love gripping African-style family dramas with heart betrayal and redemption, hit subscribe so you never miss an episode. The rain tapped lightly against the window as the triplets stormed through the front door of their modest home, their tiny backpacks dragging behind them like evidence of defeat. They were 7 years old, yet the heaviness in their footsteps suggested burdens far older. Grace Johnson, their mother, was in the kitchen preparing a pot of egusi soup when she noticed the unusual silence that followed. Normally, their return from school was a festival of chatter, arguments about who won a playground race, or desperate demands for snacks. Today, it was only the sound of small feet arranging themselves in the living room, followed by a whisper that sounded far too official for children. "Emergency family meeting, Emma," declared her voice sharp like a judge calling the court to order. Grace frowned, wiped her hands on her apron, and walked into the living room. There they were, Emma standing with her hands on her hips, Daniel perched forward with his arms crossed, and David adjusting his glasses like a professor about to announce exam results. They looked nothing like children in this moment. They were little prosecutors waiting to indict. "My darlings, what's wrong?" Grace asked, though her stomach already knotted. "Don't call us your babies, Mama," David said seriously. "We are 7 years old. We are big children now, and we demand the truth." Grace's heart sank. She had prayed this moment would not come until they were at least teenagers old enough to understand shades of gray. But Emma's chin lifted higher. Daniel's eyes flamed with determination, and David's notebook lay open on his lap, as though ready to record confessions. "We want to know who our father is," Emma said with terrifying clarity. "Not later. Now." Grace's hand flew to her chest. "Sweethearts, we've talked about this before. Your father, it's complicated." "Complicated," Emma scoffed. "Everything is complicated to adults. But we can handle complicated. We're not ordinary kids." Daniel nodded fiercely. "Uncle Samuel has been pretending to be our father at school events for 7 years. Everyone knows he's our uncle. Not our dad." David adjusted his glasses again, voice tightening. "Today Ruby and her brother called us the B word again. Bastards. And Mama, it hurt." Grace froze, fury flashing across her face. "She called you what I'll call the school right now." "Mama, focus," Emma interrupted, her little finger stabbing the air like a lawyer silencing a witness. "This isn't about Ruby. It's about our right to know the truth." The triplets' voices layered over one another. "We want to know," our father said, Daniel. "The Constitution says children have rights," David added, "and one of those rights is to know both parents." Grace felt her chest tighten. They were relentless, brilliant little hurricanes just like the night they were born. But she also saw the shimmer of tears forming in their eyes, proof that behind all the determination lay fear and longing. She sat down heavily on the couch. "My loves, this isn't something we can discuss now. You're still too young." "Too young," David's voice cracked. "Mama, I can solve math that makes my teacher cry. Daniel reads college books. Emma negotiates with principals. Too young is not an excuse." "Stop hiding behind complicated, Mama," Emma stamped her foot. "We want simple. We want Daddy." The 3 burst into tears, then not tantrum tears but heartbreak tears. Tears that trembled Grace's soul. She pulled them into her arms, their small shoulders heaving against her chest. "Please," Mama, Emma whispered. "We promise not to cause trouble. We just want to know him, to love him." Grace swallowed hard. How could she explain that their father had no idea they even existed? How could she confess that she had buried her pain so deep it had grown into silence? "Talking about your father makes me sad," she whispered. Sometimes, David said gently, when we talk about sad things, they stop being scary. For a brief second, Grace almost let the dam break. Almost. But pride surged and sealed her lips shut. "Go to your rooms now," she said firmly. "We'll discuss this when you're older." The children exchanged glances, defeated but not broken. Emma crossed her arms. "Fine, but this isn't over." Grace forced authority into her tone. Upstairs. Now. Reluctantly, they obeyed. But as their footsteps faded, she could hear their whispers, "We're not giving up." That night, Grace lay in bed, tears streaking her face as memories flooded back. The university parties, the laughter, Adrian's warm smile. The night that changed her life forever. 8 years ago, she had loved a man so deeply, she thought it was forever. Until she saw him in what looked like betrayal, his lips against another woman's. Her world had collapsed, her pride refusing to hear explanations. She had run, leaving him behind, pregnant with a secret she swore never to reveal. Now those secrets were pounding on her bedroom walls in the voices of 3 relentless children. Meanwhile, upstairs, the triplets gathered in Emma's room, like generals planning a war. "Mama won't tell us," Emma said, pacing, "so we'll find out ourselves." "But how?" Daniel asked. "Think Daniel," Emma snapped, then softened. "Who knows Mama's secrets?" "Auntie Betty," David answered, scribbling into his notebook. Emma's eyes gleamed. "Exactly, and Auntie Betty can't resist us." The next day they called Auntie Betty. They cried on command, spoke of bullying, painted pictures of loneliness. Betty's heart cracked, and despite years of loyalty to Grace, she whispered the truth. "Your father is Adrian Cole." The triplets gasped in unison, though poorly acted surprise gave them away. Later that evening, David typed the name on the family tablet. Images filled the screen. Adrian Cole, billionaire CEO, a face so familiar it felt like a mirror. Emma touched the glass screen with trembling fingers. "That's him," she whispered. "That's our daddy." Daniel pointed at the article. "He eats lunch at Leonie's Italian restaurant every Tuesday at 1 p.m. That's tomorrow." Emma's lips curled into a smile, both mischievous and determined. "Then tomorrow we take matters into our own hands." David glanced nervously at his notes. "That sounds like kidnapping." Emma corrected him with unwavering certainty. "No, not kidnapping, a family reunion. A surprise one." The 3 siblings clasped hands like conspirators, sealing a pact. In another room, Grace sat staring out her window, unaware of the storm her children were about to unleash. The sun beat down on the bustling city the next afternoon, as Emma, Daniel, and David stood outside Leonie's Italian restaurant with Uncle Samuel. Cars honked, pedestrians hurried past, but to the triplets, the world narrowed into one mission: find Adrian Cole. Uncle Samuel adjusted his faded army cap nervously. "Children, this is madness. Your mama will kill me if she finds out. She'll bury me alive for helping you." Emma, unfazed, tugged at his sleeve. "Uncle, this isn't madness. It's destiny. Don't you want us to know our father?" Samuel groaned, glancing at the determined faces of the 3 little soldiers. He had faced war zones with less intimidation. "Yes, but there are laws, Emma. You can't just snatch a billionaire off the street." "It's not snatching," Daniel corrected, calm and logical as ever. "It's creative family diplomacy." David scribbled in his small notebook. "Operation Reunion is now officially in motion. Step 1, distract target. Step 2, induce temporary sleep. Step 3, transport to Mama." Samuel's eyes widened. "Sleep? What do you mean, sleep?" Emma smiled sweetly. "Just a little nap, Uncle, for science. Don't worry, we researched it." Samuel opened his mouth to protest again, but froze when Emma suddenly pointed toward the restaurant window. "There, it's him." The man seated by the window was unmistakable. Tall, broad-shouldered, with neatly combed dark hair and a sharp suit. His eyes, emerald green, piercing and contemplative, looked hauntingly familiar. It was as if pieces of the children's own faces had been reflected back at them. "That's him," Emma whispered, clutching her brother's hands. "That's our daddy." Inside Adrian, Cole was enjoying a plate of spaghetti alone at his corner table. From the outside, he looked like a man who had everything: wealth, power, respect. But the slight slump of his shoulders and the weary look in his eyes revealed something else: loneliness. "Perfect," Emma declared. "We move now." "Move. Move what?" Samuel hissed, panic rising. "The plan," Emma replied, striding forward with the confidence of a general. They pushed open the door of Leonie's, the triplets, marching in like a parade of chaos. Heads turned. A waiter frowned, but before he could stop them, they had reached Adrian's table. "Sir, please help us," Emma exclaimed dramatically, her eyes filling with instant tears. "Our father fainted outside," Daniel added, his voice trembling with urgency. "He collapsed in the alley. Please come quickly," David finished, clutching Adrian's arm. Adrian immediately rose, concern etching his features. "Your father collapsed. Where is he?" "Outside, sir," Emma said, pulling on his sleeve. "Please hurry. He needs you." Without hesitation, Adrian followed them through the restaurant, weaving past startled diners out the back door and into the alley. There, lying awkwardly against a crate, was Samuel performing the most unconvincing feint of his life. Adrian dropped to his knees. "Sir, are you all right?" He pressed his fingers to Samuel's wrist. His pulse is steady. "Did he hit his head?" Emma leaned in. "No, but maybe he needs this." And before Adrian could react, she blew a fine puff of white powder into his face. Adrian coughed, staggered, and blinked in confusion. What did you—" But the words melted as his eyes fluttered shut and his tall frame slumped to the ground beside Samuel. "Success," Emma announced triumphantly. David bent down, checking Adrian's breathing with exaggerated seriousness. "Target unconscious. Mission proceeding." Samuel sat up abruptly, coughing. "Are you insane? You actually drugged him? Do you know what this means?" "Yes," Daniel replied coolly. "It means Phase 2 relocation." "This is not relocation. This is a felony," Samuel whispered harshly. Emma waved him off. "Uncle, don't be dramatic. We're not criminals. We're children reuniting a family." "By drugging a billionaire and dragging him to your mama's house," Samuel squeaked. "Yes," David said, matter-of-factly. "Exactly that." With surprising teamwork, the three children and their reluctant uncle maneuvered Adrian's unconscious body into Samuel's car. It was not graceful. His long legs stuck out awkwardly, his expensive shoes scraping the car door, his tie dangling like a flag of surrender. "Quick," Emma ordered. "Tie him up before he wakes." Samuel's eyes bulged. "What? You want me to—" "Uncle, you were in the army," Daniel interrupted. "You know knots." Muttering about resigning from his family, Samuel nonetheless helped tie Adrian's wrists loosely with rope. They wedged him across the back seat, then Emma climbed in beside him, stroking his hair with unsettling tenderness. "He's even more handsome in real life," she whispered. "Stop that," Samuel barked, starting the engine. "We are already in deep trouble. Don't make it worse." But as they drove toward home, Daniel's eyes gleamed with wonder. "Imagine Mama's face when she sees him. It'll be the greatest Father's Day gift ever." David, scribbling furiously in his notebook, added, "Documenting everything for historical accuracy. One day they'll make a movie about this." Samuel groaned. "More like a police report." 20 minutes later, the car pulled into Grace's driveway. Adrian stirred, groaning faintly, his lashes fluttering. "He's waking up," Daniel announced. Emma checked her watch. "Perfect timing. We're here." When the car door opened, Adrian's voice rasped, muffled but furious. "What? Who are you? Untie me. Do you know who I am?" "Yes," Emma said proudly, hands on her hips. "You're Adrian Cole, CEO, billionaire, and our daddy." Adrian froze, blinking at the three miniature faces staring back at him. For a moment, confusion swirled across his features, then shock, then something softer. Because in the lines of their expressions, he saw echoes of himself. Emma's sharp chin, Daniel's warm smile, David's intelligent eyes. "That's impossible," he whispered. "I don't have children." "You do now," Emma corrected. News flash. The front door slammed suddenly and Grace's voice rang out. "Emma, Daniel, David, Samuel, what's going on?" She stopped cold. There on her front porch stood her children, flanking a furious but tied-up Adrian Cole. Her knees almost buckled. "Adrian," she whispered, as if seeing a ghost. He met her eyes, his own, filled with disbelief. "Grace." The children exchanged triumphant glances. "Surprise," Emma announced, arms stretched wide. "We found Daddy. We kidnapped him for you." Grace's face drained of color, her body trembling as secrets long buried came clawing back to the surface. In that single breath, 8 years of silence shattered, and nothing would ever be the same again. Grace gripped the edge of the doorway as though the wooden frame was the only thing keeping her upright. The sight before her felt unreal. Adrian Cole, the man she had once loved so fiercely, sat bound and disheveled on her porch, his emerald eyes burning with fury and confusion. And standing proudly beside him were her 3 children, faces glowing with triumph like soldiers returning from a victorious campaign. "Adrian," she whispered again, her voice trembling. "Hello, Grace," he said hoarsely. "Long time no see. Though I must admit I never expected our reunion to be like this." Emma beamed. "Mama, we brought Daddy home for you. Aren't you happy?" Happy. Grace's voice cracked, her gaze darting between her children and the furious billionaire still tied to Samuel's old wheelchair. "What in God's name have you done?" "Reunited our family," Daniel said matter-of-factly. "Forcibly relocated him," David added with precision. "Not kidnapped. That word is too harsh." Kidnapped is exactly the word Grace snapped. Untie him this instant. Adrian chuckled bitterly, though his eyes never left hers. For once I agree with your mother. Grace, could you please explain why 3 miniature detectives just accused me of being their father? The children exchanged glances. Emma stepped forward, her chin lifted proudly. Because you are. You're our daddy. You abandoned us and Mama, but we found you. And now you must take responsibility. Adrian's brow furrowed. Abandoned, What? He turned back to Grace, confusion warring with the faint tremor of recognition. Grace, what is she talking about? Grace's lips parted, but no sound came out. Her heart pounded violently against her ribs. 8 years of silence, 8 years of secrets, and now the truth loomed like a tidal wave threatening to drown them all. I think Adrian said slowly, his eyes narrowing, that we need a conversation. Preferably with these ropes off. The children erupted at once. No, not yet, Emma protested. You might run. He won't, David reasoned. He looks too shocked to run. Besides, Daddy doesn't run away from his children, Daniel added confidently. Adrian blinked at the word Daddy. It rolled over him like a storm. His gaze shifted, and for the first time he really looked at them. Emma's jawline, his jawline. Daniel's easy smile, his smile. David's sharp, thoughtful eyes, the mirror of his own. How old are you? Adrian asked quietly. 7, they chorused. Adrian's breath hitched. His mind raced back to that fateful graduation night, the night filled with stars, laughter, too much wine, and promises whispered in the dark. He did the math instantly. 7 years. The timing was perfect. She never told me, he whispered, his voice breaking. Grace's eyes filled with tears. Because I couldn't. Because you. She choked on the words. Because you broke me, Adrian? The children gasped. Emma placed her hands on her hips. Mama, what do you mean? Grace swallowed hard, forcing herself to speak, though every word tore open old wounds. Years ago, when I was in medical school in New York, Adrian and we were in love. We had plans for the future. But then, I caught him kissing another woman. Adrian's head snapped up. That's not what happened. Grace's voice rose with anger and pain. I saw you, Adrian, with her lips on yours, right there in your apartment. You didn't even fight her off. I did. Adrian insisted, his voice desperate. I was trying to push her away. Grace, you left before I could explain. The children looked back and forth between their parents like spectators at a tennis match. David raised his hand. So, this was all just a misunderstanding. Emma's voice cut in sharply. Wait, Mama, you saw Daddy kiss someone and ran away, and Daddy, you didn't chase her hard enough. I chased her, Adrian said, his voice cracking. For weeks. I called, I begged, I searched everywhere. But she disappeared. She blocked me, left the country, vanished into thin air. Grace bit her lip, trembling. Because I was pregnant, and I was too proud, too hurt to let you think I was trapping you with a child. You were the heir to your father's empire, Adrian. I didn't want to be the desperate woman who pinned you down with babies. Silence fell heavy and suffocating. The only sound was the triplets' simultaneous gasp. You mean? Daniel's voice quivered. You never told him about us. Grace's shoulders slumped in defeat. No. The children stared at her in shock. Emma's voice rose high and sharp. So all these years we thought Daddy abandoned us, but he didn't even know we existed. Tears rolled down Grace's cheeks. Yes. Adrian's eyes blazed with anguish. Grace, you stole 7 years from me. 7 years I'll never get back with my children. Grace broke, then sobbing. I thought I was protecting myself. I thought I was protecting them. I was wrong. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Adrian spoke softly, his eyes locked on the triplets. Children, I swear to you, I never abandoned you. I never knew you were alive. But now that I do, I will never leave you again. Emma's face softened. Daniel's lips curved into a tentative smile. David scribbled into his notebook, Declaration of Fatherhood, signed and witnessed. Grace wiped her tears, struggling to find her voice. Adrian, this is not simple. You can't just walk back into our lives. Why not? Emma interrupted. You love him. He loves you. We love him. That's a family. Emma Grace warned, but her daughter stood taller, undeterred. Mama, we don't want complicated anymore. We hate that word. We want simple. We want Daddy. Adrian turned to Grace, then his eyes brimming with equal parts, pain and hope. Grace, I know we've both made mistakes, but please don't shut me out again. Let me be their father. Before Grace could respond, the sound of car doors slamming outside interrupted them. Neighbors were gathering, whispering, pointing at the strange sight of a billionaire CEO tied up on her porch. Inside, Grace muttered quickly, untying Adrian's wrists with trembling hands. "Before the entire street calls the police." The ropes fell away, and Adrian flexed his wrists. "Thank you," he said softly. The children swarmed him instantly, tugging his arms, bombarding him with questions. "Are you mad at us? Do you love us now? Will you come to Father's Day on Friday?" Adrian laughed shakily, overwhelmed by their energy. "Mad no. Amazed yes. And yes, I'll come to Father's Day. I'd be honored." The children cheered so loudly that the neighbors peeking through curtains nearly jumped. Grace stood frozen, her heart pounding. She had no idea how to rebuild trust, no idea how to explain the tangled web of her decisions. But as she watched Adrian kneel and hug the triplets, tears glistening in his eyes, something inside her shifted. For the first time in years, hope flickered. "Still," she whispered under her breath, "this is only the beginning." And she was right. Because while Adrian Cole's sudden reappearance lit joy in her children's hearts, it also awakened storms of jealousy, betrayal, and choices that would test them all. The night that followed felt heavier than any Grace Johnson had endured in years. After ushering the neighbors away with nervous smiles and polite excuses, she shut the door and locked it tight. The living room was thick with silence, broken only by the faint ticking of the wall clock. Adrian Cole, still shaken from the bizarre ambush, sat on the couch, while 3 pairs of eager eyes refused to leave his face. Grace stood at the edge of the room, her arms folded across her chest like a barrier against the storm of emotions inside her. She was furious at her children, terrified of what Adrian's return might mean, and yet, a traitorous part of her heart was trembling with something else. Longing. Emma broke the silence first, her voice brimming with excitement. "Daddy, tomorrow we'll show you our school. Everyone will know you're real." Emma Grace snapped. "He is not going anywhere until we decide what's best for this family." Daniel frowned. "But Mama, it is best. We've been humiliated for years while other kids brought their fathers to school. Don't we deserve this?" "Yes," David chimed in, lifting his notebook. "And according to Article 7 of Children's Rights, we are entitled to know and live with both parents." Adrian let out a small laugh despite the tension. "They're smart. Just like you, Grace." His voice softened as he looked at her, but Grace's glare silenced him. She turned back to the children. "Upstairs. Now. All of you." The triplets groaned in unison, but obeyed, climbing the stairs with exaggerated sighs. Emma called back before disappearing around the corner. "Don't take too long, Mama. Daddy might run if you leave him alone." Their laughter echoed upstairs, leaving the adults in a thick, awkward quiet. Grace finally faced Adrian, her eyes blazing. "You need to leave." Leave? His brows furrowed. "Grace, I just discovered I have 3 children, our children. Do you really expect me to walk out as though nothing happened?" She clenched her fist. "You don't understand. My life has been carefully built around protecting them, raising them without scandal, without chaos. You barging back into our lives will ruin everything." Adrian rose from the couch, his tall frame casting a shadow across the room. "Ruin everything. Grace, I've already lost 7 years with them. I will not lose another day. They're mine too, and they have every right to know me." Her lips trembled, but she hardened her voice. "You can't just claim them like trophies. Being a father isn't about blood, it's about sacrifice. Where were you when I was alone, when they cried at night, when I worked double shifts to buy them school shoes?" I didn't know. Adrian's voice cracked with raw frustration. "If I had known, I would have been there. You know I would." Grace's chest heaved, her anger clashing with the truth in his eyes. She wanted to believe him, but years of pain weighed her down. "It's not that simple." Adrian took a slow breath, forcing calm. "Then let me prove it. Give me a chance. I'll start with something small. Let me come to their Father's Day event on Friday, nothing more. Just let me be there." Grace shook her head, but her resolve was crumbling. His voice was softer now, desperate yet steady. "Please, don't punish them for our mistakes." Her shoulders slumped, and for the first time since the ordeal began, tears pooled in her eyes. She turned away, whispering, "You should go. We'll talk tomorrow." Adrian hesitated, then nodded. He bent down, kissed the edge of the children's drawings pinned to the wall, and quietly let himself out. Upstairs, 3 pairs of ears had been pressed against the floorboards the entire time. The moment the front door closed, Emma leapt onto her bed, pumping her fists in triumph. "He's not going anywhere. Did you see his eyes? He's hooked." Daniel leaned against the wall, deep in thought. "Mama's scared. We have to help her see that Daddy's not the enemy." David scribbled quickly, New mission, Operation Parent Reconciliation. Step 1, secure daddy at Father's Day. Step 2, dismantle all obstacles. Step 3, force romantic reunion. Emma grinned wickedly. Perfect. By the end of this, they'll be walking down the aisle, whether they like it or not. The next morning, Grace awoke to find the children already dressed and whispering excitedly over breakfast. She barely had the energy to scold them before rushing to the hospital for her shift. Her mind was a battlefield, half dreading Adrian's persistence, half replaying the way he looked at the children as though they were the greatest treasure he'd ever seen. By noon, Adrian himself arrived at the hospital holding a bouquet of lilies, the same flowers he once brought her back in New York. Grace stiffened when she saw him standing in the corridor. "You shouldn't be here," she hissed. "I had to see you," he replied softly. "Not to fight, just to talk." Her colleague, Dr. Martin, passed by and eyed Adrian with suspicion. "Grace, is everything all right?" Grace forced a tight smile. "Yes, Martin." He was just leaving, but Martin didn't move. He studied Adrian, then Grace, then the lilies in his hand. His jaw tightened. Adrian's eyes narrowed slightly. "And you are?" Her colleague Martin said coolly. "And her friend?" Adrian's lips curved into a faint smirk. "Friend, interesting." Grace groaned inwardly. The last thing she needed was two men clashing in her hospital hallway. She stepped between them. "Stop this! Adrian, you need to leave!" For once, he didn't argue. He only handed her the flowers and whispered Friday. "Please." Then he walked away, leaving Martin staring after him with a look Grace couldn't quite decipher. Meanwhile, the triplets were busy at home, finalizing their plan. They rummaged through the wardrobe, selecting Adrian's Father's Day outfit from the small selection of clothes they had stolen from his public photos online. "Dark suit, shiny shoes, power tie," Emma dictated. "We'll make Ruby eat her words." David added, "And we need transportation. Daddy should arrive in style. Limo or nothing." Daniel chewed his pencil. "But what if Mama says no again?" Emma smirked. "Then we'll just make her say yes." "How?" David asked. "With guilt," she said sweetly. "Lots and lots of guilt." The boys laughed nervously, already imagining Mama's horrified face when she realized her children had orchestrated a high-profile family drama. That evening, Adrian arrived at their doorstep once again, this time by choice rather than force. Grace nearly shut the door in his face, but the triplets screamed with delight, dragging him inside like royalty. Daddy, Emma leapt onto his lap before he could sit. "We planned everything for Friday. You'll come, right?" Adrian smiled and kissed her forehead. "I promised I would, didn't I?" Grace sighed, her hands tightening around a dish towel. "Adrian, this isn't complicated," Daniel interrupted cheekily. "We don't like that word." Grace shot him a look, but Adrian chuckled. "Neither do I." The children cheered, wrapping their arms around him. For the first time in years, laughter filled the Johnson household again. Grace leaned against the kitchen doorway, watching the impossible scene unfold. Her children's faces lit with joy. Adrian's arms around them, a family that should never have been but somehow was. Her heart whispered what her pride refused to say. Maybe, just maybe, this is what we were always meant to be. Friday morning dawned with golden light spilling across the Johnson household, but for the triplets, it felt like the most important day of their young lives. The house buzzed with unusual energy, a mixture of excitement and nerves. Emma darted around in her school uniform, tugging Daniel's tie into place, while David polished his glasses for the 5th time. Their mission was simple: march into school with Adrian Cole at their side heads, held high, and erase years of mockery in a single triumphant entrance. Grace, however, was a storm inside. She stood at the mirror, adjusting her nurse's coat, her reflection pale and tense. Adrian's promise to attend Father's Day had kept her awake all night. Every worst-case scenario haunted her. The gossiping parents, the shocked teachers, the inevitable chaos when people realized who he was. She feared scandal, feared her children's hearts being broken if Adrian failed them, and most of all feared the walls she had built around her soul collapsing in his presence. Mommy, Daniel's voice pulled her back. He stood at the doorway, his face unusually solemn. "We know you're scared, but please don't stop him. Let him come for us today. Just today." Her eyes softened. He looked so much like Adrian in that moment, steady, earnest, impossible to argue with. Grace sighed and kissed his forehead. "Fine, just today." Meanwhile, Adrian prepared with equal determination. He stood before his mansion's closet, his assistant nervously holding out ties. "This one, sir, or perhaps the silk navy." Adrian shook his head, surprising them all. "No, this isn't about business. Today I'm not the CEO. I'm a father." He chose a crisp charcoal suit, polished shoes, and a bold red tie, the kind of outfit that would make children proud. He dismissed the convoy of security guards, opting instead for a sleek black car that would fit in at a schoolyard without drawing a circus. But he couldn't resist one indulgence. He tucked 3 small velvet boxes into his pocket, each holding a silver bracelet engraved with a name, Emma Daniel David. For years, he had built empires with his mind. Today, he would build something far greater with his heart. At school, the courtyard bustled with chatter as children clustered with their fathers. Laughter echoed, paper crowns were passed around, and Ruby, the notorious bully, stood in the middle with her father flaunting the gold watch on his wrist. Emma spotted her immediately. "Target acquired," she muttered to her brothers. "Prepare for victory." "Don't gloat yet," Daniel cautioned, though his lips twitched with excitement. David scribbled a note in his book, Ruby's humiliation imminent. Grace guided them through the gates, her steps heavy, her heart pounding. But then the sleek black car pulled in and every head turned. Out stepped Adrian Cole, tall and magnetic, his presence commanding the space instantly. The crowd gasped, some whispering his name, others fumbling to snap photos with their phones. Emma sprinted forward. "Daddy," she cried, leaping into his arms. Daniel and David followed, their faces glowing with pride. "Hello, my soldiers," Adrian said warmly, kissing each of their foreheads. Then he looked at Grace, his voice gentler. "Hello, Grace." She swallowed hard, caught between fury and fragile hope. "You didn't need to make a spectacle." "I didn't," he replied softly. "I only came to be their father. The spectacle follows me, not the other way around." The children clasped his hands and proudly led him into the crowd. "This is our daddy," Emma announced loudly, her voice carrying across the courtyard. "He's real, and he's here for us." Ruby's jaw dropped. That's Adrian Cole, the billionaire." "Yes," Daniel said sweetly, "and he's our father." David adjusted his glasses. "We ran DNA comparisons with his photos online. 97% resemblance. Irrefutable evidence." The other children gasped, teachers murmured in disbelief, and Ruby's face turned crimson. Her brother tried to snicker, but even he fell silent under Adrian's piercing gaze. Adrian knelt to meet Ruby's eyes, his smile kind but firm. "Young lady, I hear you've been unkind to my children. That ends today. They have a father, and they always will." Ruby's mouth snapped shut. She nodded quickly, her arrogance shattered. The triplets exchanged a look of pure triumph. Operation Father's Day success. Throughout the event, Adrian was everywhere, participating in the sack race, clumsily tying paper crowns, even joining the dance competition despite his expensive shoes. The triplets glowed with pride, introducing him to every teacher, every classmate. Grace watched from the sidelines, her heart torn between awe and fear. When the microphone was passed around for children to introduce their fathers, Emma seized the moment. She climbed the stage, her small figure commanding attention. "This is my daddy," she declared, pointing at Adrian. "He's smart and rich, but that's not why we love him. We love him because he came, because he chose us." The courtyard erupted in applause, parents nodding, teachers wiping their eyes. Adrian himself struggled to hold back tears. For the first time in 7 years, the triplets stood tall, no longer the children without a father, but the proud heirs of a bond that could not be denied. Later that evening, the Johnson home overflowed with laughter. Adrian sat on the living room floor, his suit jacket, discarded sleeves rolled up. Emma braided his hair with colorful ribbons. Daniel challenged him to a chess match, and David explained the periodic table in painstaking detail. Grace leaned against the doorway, silently watching. It was chaos. It was loud. It was beautiful. Adrian caught her gaze and smiled. "I missed this," he said softly. "You never had it," she replied, before she could stop herself. His smile faltered, but he nodded. "Then I'll spend the rest of my life making up for it." The words hit her like a promise and a threat all at once. She turned away, unable to bear the hope rising inside her. But while the children celebrated their victory, new storms brewed in the shadows. Dr. Martin, who had watched Adrian's arrival with narrowed eyes, now carried a bitterness that twisted deeper with every rumor spreading across the hospital. And Adrian's fiancée Isabella had already seen the photos circulating online. Her rage would not be contained. For Grace, the return of Adrian Cole was not just the reopening of an old wound. It was the beginning of a battle between the past she had buried, the future her children demanded, and the fragile heart she no longer trusted. And as the triplets plotted upstairs, already whispering about Operation Wedding Bells, Grace knew her life would never again return to the quiet, controlled existence she once thought she wanted. This was only the beginning. The Johnson home had never been so alive. For 3 days after the Father's Day event, Adrian Cole became a constant presence. He appeared at the school gate with his polished car, drawing whispers from teachers and parents. He helped with homework, cheered at soccer practice, and even managed to survive Emma's bossy family schedule, which included evening board games and nightly storytelling. But while the children celebrated their newfound father, Grace lived in quiet torment. Every time Adrian laughed with the children, every time his green eyes softened when they clung to him, she felt her walls crumble. Yet every time she remembered the night she had left him, the betrayal she believed she'd witnessed, the old pain return like a knife. On the 4th evening, the storm finally broke. Adrian was in the kitchen, sleeves rolled up, attempting to chop onions, while David lectured him about the correct way to dice. Daniel was sprawled on the counter reading a book, while Emma marched in with a clipboard. "Daddy, we've reviewed your performance this week," she announced. "You get an A in attendance, an A+ in enthusiasm, but a B- in cooking skills." Adrian laughed, flicking an onion slice at her. "Tough critic. I'll work on it." Grace, leaning in the doorway, crossed her arms. "That's enough," she said sharply. The children froze. Emma lowered her clipboard. Grace's eyes were fixed on Adrian, her voice trembling with restrained fury. "Can I speak to you alone?" Adrian wiped his hands and nodded. He followed her into the living room, leaving the children to exchange nervous whispers. The moment the door shut, Grace rounded on him. "What exactly are you doing, Adrian?" He blinked. "Spending time with my children." "You're disrupting their lives," she snapped. "They're confused. They've gone from having no father to suddenly being paraded around with a billionaire. Do you realize what that does to children's hearts?" "They're not confused," Adrian countered, his voice calm but firm. "They're happy. I've seen the way they look at me. They needed me, Grace. And whether you like it or not, I need them." Grace's throat tightened. "You can't just walk in here and fix everything with expensive cars and promises. Do you really think that's what I'm doing?" His eyes darkened with hurt. "Grace, I'm not here as a billionaire. I'm here as a man who lost 7 years of his children's lives. I can't undo the past, but I refuse to lose the future." Her voice cracked. "You don't know how much it hurt raising them alone, listening to their questions, watching them cry at school plays because they were the only ones without a father. You weren't there. Because you never told me." Adrian shot back, his composure slipping. "You saw something you misunderstood and you ran. You didn't even give me a chance to explain. You chose your pride over us." Grace flinched as though struck. Tears burned her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. "I was protecting myself. I was protecting them." Adrian stepped closer, his voice breaking. "You were punishing me for something I didn't do, and in the process you punished them too." Silence hung between them, heavy with years of regret. Grace's chest heaved, her fists clenched. Finally, she whispered, "Maybe it was a mistake to let you back in." The words hit him like ice, but before he could respond, Emma's voice rang out from the other room. "Mama, don't you dare." The door creaked open, and all 3 children stormed in, their faces blazing with determination. "You can't send Daddy away," Emma shouted. "This isn't your business," Grace said firmly. "Yes, it is," Daniel cried. "We've waited 7 years for him. We're not letting you ruin this because you're scared." David stepped forward, his voice trembling but strong. "Mama, we love you, but we love Daddy too, and you can't take him from us." Grace's heart broke at the sight of their pleading faces. She pressed her hands to her face, torn between her fear and their unshakable hope. Adrian's voice softened. "Grace, listen to them. Don't shut them out. Don't shut me out." For a long moment she said nothing. Then with a deep sigh, she whispered, "Fine, stay, but only for them, not for me." The children erupted in cheers, hugging Adrian tightly. Grace turned away, hiding the tears that finally spilled down her cheeks. But while joy filled the children's hearts, storm clouds gathered elsewhere. At the hospital, Dr. Martin sat in his office, replaying the images he had seen online. Grace's children clinging to Adrian Cole, the billionaire, smiling proudly at Father's Day. Jealousy seethed in his chest. For months he had courted Grace, imagining a future with her. Now, overnight, her past had returned in the form of a man he could never compete with. "She'll never look at me the same way," he muttered bitterly. His hand clenched into a fist. "Not while he's here." Meanwhile, across town, Isabella, the woman Adrian had been engaged to, threw her phone across the room in fury. The headlines flashing on the screen had been relentless. Billionaire CEO surprises school. On Father's Day meets his hidden children, Adrian Cole. From tycoon to father of 3 overnight. Her hands shook with rage. 7 years he never mentioned them, and now he's parading them around like some fairy tale reunion. She paced the room, her high heels stabbing the marble floor. If he thinks he can throw me aside for some old flame and 3 brats, he's mistaken. Her assistant hovered nervously. What do you want us to do, madam? Isabella's lips curled into a cold smile. Find me everything on Grace Johnson. Her past, her career, her weaknesses. If Adrian wants to play family, I'll make sure it all burns. Back at the Johnson home, the triplets gathered in their room, whispering conspiratorially. Operation Reunion is successful, Emma declared. Now we start Phase 2, Operation Wedding Bells. Daniel grinned. We just have to keep pushing them together until they admit they're still in love. David scribbled a new plan in his notebook. Step 1, sabotage any competition. Step 2, create opportunities for romance. Step 3, secure proposal. Emma's eyes gleamed with mischief. By Christmas, we'll have Mama in a wedding dress. Daniel raised his hand for a solemn oath. For the sake of family unity, we pledge to do whatever it takes. They all clasped hands, sealing the pact. Downstairs, Grace sat on the couch, her head in her hands. Adrian glanced at her from across the room, his heart aching. He wanted to cross the space between them, to take her in his arms, to tell her that the years apart had never killed the love he carried. But he knew pushing too hard now would only drive her further away. Instead, he whispered under his breath, I'll wait. For as long as it takes. What he didn't realize was that waiting might not be enough. Forces beyond their home, jealous lovers, hidden grudges, and the wounds of the past were already moving against them. And the family the triplets fought so fiercely to create would soon face trials that no child's plan could control. But for tonight, in the fragile glow of laughter and hope, they allowed themselves to believe in possibility. And sometimes possibility is all a family needs to begin again. The Johnson household had become a battlefield of emotions. To the triplets, life had never been brighter. Every morning, Adrian showed up every evening, ended with him listening to their wild stories before bedtime. To Grace, however, every new day was a tug of war between her heart and her fears. On Tuesday evening, the house smelled of jollof rice. Adrian had insisted on cooking with the children, though his knife skills made Grace cringe. He wore an apron with "World's Best Dad" scribbled in marker by Emma, and Daniel was busy stirring the pot while David gave Adrian instructions like a miniature chef. Grace entered the kitchen, exhausted from her hospital shift. The sight stopped her in her tracks. For a moment, she didn't see the chaos, the spilled rice grains, the onion peels on the floor. She saw what could have been the family dinners they had missed for 7 years. Her chest tightened, but before the warmth could spread too far, reality struck back. This is temporary, she reminded herself. It has to be. Smells good, she said curtly, dropping her bag on the chair. Adrian turned, smiling. You're just in time. The chefs have outdone themselves. Emma grabbed her hand, tugging her to the table. Mama, sit. Daddy cooked for you. Grace stiffened. The word daddy still cut like a blade in a balm all at once. She sat anyway, letting the children heap her plate. She ate in silence, the clatter of spoons and the children's laughter filling the gaps. Halfway through dinner, Emma slammed her fork down dramatically. We've decided something, she declared. Grace raised a brow. What now? Emma's eyes sparkled. We want you and Daddy to get married. Grace choked on her rice. Adrian froze spoon in midair. Daniel and David nodded solemnly, as though presenting an official decree. Marriage is the logical next step, David said, adjusting his glasses. Families are stronger when the parents are together, Daniel added. Grace's face turned crimson. Absolutely not. That is none of your business. But Mama, Emma began. Enough! Grace snapped, her voice sharper than she intended. The children recoiled, shocked. Emma's lips trembled, but she clenched her fists. If you don't want to marry Daddy, maybe you don't really love us, she whispered. The words pierced Grace's heart like knives. She pushed back from the table, her appetite gone. Go to your rooms, she said, her voice breaking. Now. The children hesitated, then stomped upstairs, their faces stormy with anger and hurt. Silence fell thick and suffocating. Adrian placed his spoon down gently. Grace. Don't, she said, her back turned to him. Don't say anything. But Adrian couldn't stay silent. They're children, Grace. They want what they think will fix everything. And they're wrong, she snapped. She turned to face him, tears brimming in her eyes. This isn't a fairy tale. We can't just patch over years of pain with a wedding. You don't know what it cost me to raise them alone. You don't know how many nights I cried myself to sleep. His voice softened. You think I didn't cry too? I lost you, Grace. And now I know I lost them too. 7 years I'll never get back. Her breath caught. The sincerity in his voice cut through her defenses, but she couldn't let herself break. Not yet. Leave, she whispered. Please. Adrian's jaw tightened. For a moment it seemed he would argue, but then he nodded. I'll go. But Grace, I'm not giving up. On them or on you. He left quietly, the sound of the door echoing in the heavy silence. Upstairs, the triplets gathered in Emma's room, huddled together like warriors after a defeat. Mama is being stubborn, Emma muttered, pacing. She's too scared to admit she still loves him. Daniel sighed. Maybe we pushed too hard. David scribbled in his notebook. No, we just need a better strategy. Operation Wedding Bells isn't over. We just adjust the plan. Emma's eyes gleamed. Exactly. If Mama won't listen to her heart, we'll make her. We'll push them together until they can't deny it. The boys nodded, sealing their pact. Meanwhile, storms gathered outside their little bubble. At the hospital, Dr. Martin couldn't focus on his work. He had overheard two nurses whispering about Adrian's appearance at Father's Day, about the photos of him with Grace, and the triplets flooding social media. Fairy tale family, one nurse had sighed. Martin's hands shook as he dropped a chart onto the counter. Fairy tale. To him it was a nightmare. Grace was slipping away from him, pulled back into the orbit of the man she once loved. That evening he knocked on Grace's office door. She looked up, surprised to see him. Martin, she said wearily. I'm busy. He stepped inside anyway, closing the door. Grace, is it true? About Adrian? About the children? Her shoulders sagged. Yes. His jaw clenched. And what about me? Have the last months meant nothing? She looked at him with tired eyes. Martin, you're a good man, but it's complicated. His lips twisted into a bitter smile. Complicated, always that word. He leaned closer, his voice sharp. Don't let him fool you, Grace. Men like Adrian don't change. He'll hurt you again. Grace turned away. Please leave. Martin did, but his anger simmered like a pot about to boil over. Across the city, Isabella plotted her own revenge. Her nails tapped furiously against the glass table as her assistant handed her a folder. Inside were photos of Grace arriving at the hospital, financial records from years back, even an old eviction notice. Perfect, Isabella hissed. If Adrian wants to play family with that woman, I'll make sure the world sees her as nothing but a desperate single mother chasing his fortune. Her assistant hesitated. And the children? Isabella's eyes flashed. Collateral damage. If Adrian feels pain, so be it. Back at the Johnson home, Grace sat alone in the living room. The children had gone to bed after a half-hearted apology, but the echo of Emma's words, maybe you don't really love us, still cut deep. She rubbed her temples, exhausted. A soft knock startled her. She opened the door to find Adrian standing there holding 3 velvet boxes. I know you asked me to leave, he said quietly, but I couldn't end the night like that. Not without this. He opened the boxes, revealing 3 silver bracelets, each engraved with a name, for them, so they'll always know they're mine. Grace's throat tightened. She wanted to slam the door to tell him his presence was poison, but instead tears spilled down her cheeks. Why are you doing this? She whispered. Because they deserve a father, Adrian said softly, and because I never stopped loving you. Her breath caught. She shook her head, trying to form words, but none came. She shut the door quickly, pressing her back against it, her heart racing. Adrian stood outside for a long moment, staring at the closed door. Then he whispered into the night, I'll wait, Grace, no matter how long it takes. But as he walked away, shadows gathered around the family, shadows of jealousy, revenge, and secrets, too heavy to stay buried. The triplets believed they were orchestrating a love story. What they didn't realize was that every fairy tale has its villains, and theirs were already plotting the next move. The next week unfolded like a play with 2 clashing scripts. On one stage, the triplets carried out Operation Wedding Bells with childlike determination. On the other, unseen enemies sharpened knives against the fragile reunion Grace and Adrian were trying to build. At home, the triplets had turned into schemers worthy of professional spies. They set up breakfast family meetings where they pretended to need both parents' signatures on school forms, arranged accidental outings where Grace and Adrian were forced to sit side by side at the cinema, and even went so far as to assign romantic missions. One evening, Emma whispered orders while sprawled on the carpet with her brothers. David, you distract Mama tomorrow after school so Daddy can walk her home. Daniel, you slip a note into Daddy's pocket reminding him to compliment Mama's hair. We need progress, people. Daniel raised an eyebrow. Complimenting hair equals marriage. Emma rolled her eyes. It's called strategy. David scribbled furiously in his notebook. Phase 2 underway. The children thought they were brilliant tacticians, but Grace saw through them instantly. When Adrian arrived with flowers again, this time sunflowers, her favorite from university days, she knew her children's fingerprints were all over the gesture. Still, her heart betrayed her. She smiled, even as she muttered, "You don't give up, do you?" Adrian's reply was quiet but steady. "Not on you, not on them." But while laughter bloomed inside the Johnson home, venom seeped outside. Dr. Martin had reached his breaking point. At the hospital, he sat in his office late at night, flipping through patient charts without reading them. Every corridor echoed with whispers about Adrian Cole's sudden family revelation. Nurses sighed over how romantic it was. Even the chief of staff congratulated Grace in the cafeteria. Martin's envy festered like an untreated wound. He had been loyal, steady, patient, yet Grace's heart seemed tethered to a man who had vanished for years and returned in a storm of wealth and charm. He poured himself a glass of whiskey in the dark. "If she won't see who he truly is," he muttered, "then I'll make her." Isabella, meanwhile, was more direct. She stormed into her lawyer's office, slamming the tabloid photos onto the desk. Adrian standing at Father's Day with the triplets beaming around him. Grace in the background, her expression unreadable. "Find me everything," Isabella demanded. "Custody laws, inheritance, loopholes, anything that paints that woman as a gold digger. If Adrian thinks he can humiliate me, I'll show him just how costly love can be." The lawyer hesitated. Attacking the children might backfire, Isabella. Public sympathy will. "I don't care about sympathy," she snapped. "I care about destroying her." Her voice dripped venom. "Grace Johnson stole my future. I'll crush hairs." At school, the triplets were on cloud nine. They strutted through the corridors, no longer the kids without a dad, but the proud children of a billionaire. Ruby kept her distance, her taunts silenced, but Emma still strutted past her with exaggerated sweetness. "Good morning, Ruby," Emma chirped. "Did you sleep well?" "We did. Daddy tucked us in." Ruby scowled. "Show off." Daniel leaned in. "Correction, truth tellers." Even David, usually the quiet one, couldn't resist. "Statistical data confirms life is better with Daddy." Their confidence soared, but Grace watched with unease. They were too proud, too loud, too unaware of the dangers circling them. That Saturday, Adrian invited them all to his mansion for dinner. It was the first time Grace had set foot inside since returning to Nigeria. The sprawling estate gleamed under the sunset, its marble floors polished like mirrors. The triplets ran through the halls, their laughter echoing off the high ceilings. "Look, Mama," Emma cried, racing up the staircase. "We could live here." Grace stiffened. "We're not moving anywhere." Adrian approached, his tone careful. "It's just a house, Grace. But it could be a home." Her eyes flashed. "Don't confuse them. Their home is with me." He sighed. "I'm not trying to take them from you. I just want to be included." Before she could reply, Emma's shriek rang out from upstairs. Grace and Adrian rushed to find the children in a bedroom, where Emma stood pointing at a photo frame on the dresser. Inside was a picture of Adrian and Isabella at a gala, smiling like royalty. "Who's this?" Emma demanded, her tone accusatory. Grace froze. Adrian rubbed his forehead. "That was my fiancé." Was Daniel pressed? "Yes," Adrian said firmly. "Was. Not anymore." Emma folded her arms. "Good. Because we don't want her. We want Mama." Grace's cheeks burned. "Emma?" Adrian met her eyes. "They're not wrong." The tension in the room crackled like electricity. Grace turned away quickly. "Dinner's getting cold." Later that night, after the children had fallen asleep in the guest rooms, Adrian found Grace standing alone on the balcony. The city lights shimmered in the distance, her figure silhouetted by the moon. "You hate me for the past," he said quietly, stepping closer. "But I swear to you, Grace, I never betrayed you. That kiss you saw, it was her, not me. I tried to explain, but you were gone before I could." Her lips trembled. "Do you know what it felt like? To give you everything, my heart, my future, my trust, then see you with her. It destroyed me." "I know," he whispered. "And I've carried that guilt every day since. But please, don't let one mistake, one misunderstanding, steal our future again." Grace's tears glistened in the moonlight. For a heartbeat, she wanted to believe him. She wanted to let the years of pain dissolve into his arms. But fear shackled her. "I can't," she whispered, turning away. "I don't know if I can trust you." Adrian swallowed hard, his jaw tightening. "Then let me earn it." She didn't answer. She only walked back inside, leaving him alone under the stars. Back at Grace's home the next day, the triplets launched phase 3 of their plan. They woke early, scribbling notes, whispering strategies. "New objective," Emma said, slapping her palm against David's notebook. "We need to get rid of distractions. That means Isabella and Dr. Martin. Daniel raised his eyebrows. And how exactly do we do that? Emma grinned mischievously. Leave it to me. Adults think they're clever, but they're no match for us. David added a new title to the notebook, Operation Remove Rivals. They had no idea that Isabella and Martin were already working on their own operation, one that could destroy everything. For the Johnson family, the battle wasn't about love anymore. It was about survival against jealousy, against revenge, against the ghosts of choices made years ago. And the triplets, so confident in their childish schemes, were about to discover that the world of adults carried dangers no game could control. The storm broke sooner than anyone expected. Monday morning, the Johnson home was unusually quiet. Grace tried to keep her mind on preparing the children's uniforms, but her nerves were shot. She'd barely slept, haunted by Adrian's words on the balcony. Don't let one mistake steal our future again. She wanted to push him away, yet her heart betrayed her, pulsing faster every time his face crossed her mind. Her phone buzzed on the counter. A message from the hospital group chat. Is this true? Dr. Grace, father of your children, is Adrian Cole. Attached was a glossy tabloid cover. Grace froze. On the front page, a paparazzi shot from the Father's Day event blazed in full color, Adrian holding Emma's hand, Daniel perched on his shoulders, David tugging his tie while Grace stood in the background, weary but unmistakable. The headline screamed, Billionaire. Seo's secret family exposed. Her heart plummeted. The children appeared at the doorway, half-dressed, still rubbing sleep from their eyes. Emma tilted her head. Mama, what's wrong? Grace shoved the phone into her pocket. Nothing. Hurry up or you'll be late. But inside, her mind was a tornado. Who leaked this? How did they know? Across town, Isabella sipped champagne while scrolling through the same article on her tablet. A cruel smile tugged at her lips. Let's see how the world adores you now, Grace Johnson. Let's see how long Adrian protects you when your name is dragged through the mud. Her assistant cleared his throat nervously. Ma'am, the public may sympathize with her, single mother raising children in secret. Sympathize, Isabella slammed the glass onto the table. The world loves a scandal more than a sob story, and I'll feed them enough to drown her. At the hospital, whispers followed Grace like shadows. Colleagues who once smiled at her now whispered behind their hands. Patients looked at her with wide, curious eyes. Even Dr. Martin appeared at her office door, his expression a mix of triumph and false sympathy. Tough morning, Grace, he asked, stepping inside without invitation. She shot him a glare. You wouldn't know anything about this, would you? Martin spread his hands innocently. Me? Of course not. But maybe the universe is doing you a favor. You'll see Adrian for who he really is now. Someone who brings chaos into everything he touches. Her jaw tightened. Get out, Martin. He leaned closer, lowering his voice. He'll ruin you, Grace. And when he does, don't expect me to pick up the pieces. He left, slamming the door, leaving Grace trembling with anger. That evening, Adrian arrived at her house. He looked exhausted, his tie loosened, his hair tousled. He held the tabloid in his hand. I'm so sorry, he said immediately. I didn't want this. I don't know who leaked it. Grace folded her arms. Of course you don't. But it happened because of you. Adrian winced. Grace. No, she snapped. My children's faces are on the front page of gossip magazines. Their classmates will torment them. Their teachers will judge them. Do you understand what you've done? He stepped closer, his voice breaking. I didn't do this. But I'll fix it. I'll protect you, all of you. No matter what it takes. Her eyes brimmed with tears. And how exactly do you plan to do that, Adrian? Throw money at it. Make another public speech. You can't protect us from everything. Emma appeared suddenly at the doorway, her brothers behind her. Yes, he can, she said fiercely. Daddy can protect us, and we'll protect him. Grace turned startled. Emma, go upstairs. No, Emma shouted, her small fists clenched. You've kept us away from him for 7 years, Mama. But he's here now. He's not leaving. We won't let him. Daniel and David nodded in solemn agreement. Adrian's throat tightened as he knelt to their level. I promise you I'll never leave again. The children swarmed him, hugging him tightly. Grace looked away, her heart shattering under the weight of their loyalty. The next day at school was chaos. Ruby and the other children had seen the tabloids. Whispers followed the triplets in the hallways. Your daddy's on the news, one boy sneered. Billionaire secrets, another laughed. But Emma stood tall, her chin high. At least we have a daddy now, and he's better than all of yours combined. Ruby tried to retort, but when Adrian appeared to pick up, the crowd of parents parted like the Red Sea. He strode forward, hand in hand with his children, his presence silencing every murmur. He bent to Emma, whispering so only she heard, "You don't need to fight them, just be proud." Emma beamed. For the first time in years, she felt invincible. That night, the triplets gathered in Emma's room again. David opened his notebook. "Update: public exposure has accelerated Operation Wedding Bells." Daniel frowned. "But Mama's scared. She thinks Daddy brings danger." Emma crossed her arms. "Then we prove to her that Daddy makes us safer, not weaker." "How?" David asked. Emma's eyes glowed with determination. "By making sure he never leaves. Ever." Meanwhile, Grace tossed restlessly in her bed. The shadows of her past pressed in around her, whispering of betrayal, fear, and humiliation. But another voice whispered louder, the laughter of her children, the warmth in Adrian's eyes, the promise in his touch. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to let go of the pain. But then her phone buzzed again. Another message, another article. Is Adrian Cole's secret family just a gold digger's trap? And beneath it, photos of her old eviction notice, her university debts, private wounds dragged into the light. Her blood ran cold. She knew who was behind this. Isabella. Grace pressed her hand to her chest, trembling. The battle wasn't just about love anymore. It was about survival. She whispered into the darkness. What have I brought my children into? Outside, the city glittered with indifferent lights. Inside, the Johnson home braced for the storm that was coming, one that even three determined little matchmakers couldn't control. But the triplets had no fear. They lay in their beds, clutching their new silver bracelets, and whispered their vow, "No matter what happens, we'll keep Mama and Daddy together." And so the children slept in fragile peace, unaware that the war for their family had only just begun. The Johnson home was no longer just a family house. It had become a fortress under siege. Every day, new headlines emerged, each one crueler than the last. Grace's name was dragged through mud, her children mocked at school, and Adrian's empire shaken by whispers of scandal. Yet inside those four walls, love fought desperately to hold its ground. Grace sat on the edge of her bed one night, her hands trembling as she held yet another tabloid. The headline screamed, "Grace Johnson, the woman who trapped a billionaire with triplets." Her stomach twisted. She wanted to hide the papers, to burn them, but she knew the children had already heard the gossip at school. The door creaked. Emma peeked in, her eyes wide. "Mama, are you crying?" Grace quickly wiped her tears. "No, baby, just tired." Emma climbed into her lap, her little arms circling her neck. "Don't listen to them. We know the truth. Daddy knows the truth. That's all that matters." Grace kissed the top of her daughter's head. But deep inside she wondered, is that enough? Adrian arrived late that evening, looking more worn than Grace had ever seen him. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loose, and for once his billionaire armor seemed to have cracked. "They're trying to ruin me," he admitted, collapsing onto the couch. "Investors are pulling out. Shareholders are demanding answers. Isabella's fingerprints are all over this." Grace's eyes sharpened. "And she won't stop until she destroys me." Adrian looked up, meeting her gaze. "Then we fight back. Together." She froze. Together, the word lodged itself in her chest. She wanted to believe it, but fear clawed at her. "What if I drag you down with me? What if the children suffer?" He reached for her hand, his voice low and steady. "Then I'll carry the weight. I won't let them suffer alone again." For a long moment she stared at him. His sincerity terrified her. It was easier when he was just the man she'd loved once. Now he was the father her children adored, and the man she was afraid she still loved. The triplets, of course, were not content to sit quietly while the adults struggled. Emma gathered her brothers in their room. "Phase 4 begins," she announced dramatically, spreading out David's notebook. Daniel tilted his head. "What's phase 4 again?" Emma's eyes gleamed. "Marriage, full family unity, no distractions." David added, "Also known as Operation Forever After." They clasped hands, whispering their vow. "We won't let anything tear Mama and Daddy apart." But their vow was about to be tested. 2 days later, Grace received an envelope at the hospital. Inside were photos, grainy but damning. They showed Adrian at a restaurant, Isabella leaning close, her hand on his arm. The note attached read, "Men never change. Protect your children." Grace's chest constricted. She knew Adrian had promised to cut ties, but the image clawed at her worst fears. Had she been a fool to trust him, even a little? That evening, when Adrian came to pick up the children, she confronted him at the door. "Isabella," she spat, shoving the photos at him. "Care to explain?" His eyes widened as he scanned the pictures. "Grace, this isn't what it looks like. She ambushed me." "Do you hear yourself?" she snapped. That's the same excuse men have used since the beginning of time. His jaw tightened. I swear to you, I didn't go to her. She found me. She wanted to provoke this exact reaction. Grace's hands shook, and she succeeded. Emma, Daniel, and David peeked from the hallway, their eyes wide. They saw their parents standing inches apart, anger and pain swirling between them like a storm. Emma whispered fiercely, "We can't let them break." That night, Adrian returned to his mansion alone. For the first time since Father's Day, the house felt unbearably empty. He stared at the walls at the photo the triplets had insisted on taking with him in the garden. He pressed the frame to his chest, whispering, "I won't lose you again." Meanwhile, Grace lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her heart aching with doubt. She remembered the night she had run all those years ago, the kiss she thought she saw, the betrayal she believed. Was she about to repeat history, punishing him for something she didn't fully understand? But fear won over hope. By morning, she had made her decision. She told the children firmly, "Adrian won't be visiting for a while." The triplets erupted in protest. "No!" Emma shouted. "You can't just ban him." Daniel stomped his foot. "That's not fair. He didn't do anything." David's voice cracked. "Mama, please don't make us lose him again." Grace's heart nearly shattered, but she steeled herself. "This is for your protection. You'll understand when you're older." The words tasted like ash in her mouth. That evening, the triplets put their heads together. "Emergency plan," Emma whispered. "We can't wait for them anymore. We take control." Daniel's eyes widened. "What are you thinking?" Emma's grin was fierce. "If Mama won't forgive him, we'll make her." David scribbled rapidly. Operation Reunion, final stage. The children knew it was dangerous, but their hearts burned with determination. They had already kidnapped a billionaire once. They could certainly save him now. 2 days later, Grace was called to the school unexpectedly. She rushed there, panic clawing at her. But when she arrived, the classroom was empty. Her children were gone. On the teacher's desk lay a note scrawled in Emma's handwriting. "Don't worry, Mama. We're fixing everything. We'll bring Daddy home where he belongs." Grace's blood turned to ice. Oh God. Not again. She grabbed her phone, dialing frantically. "Adrian, they've taken off. They're coming for you." His voice crackled with alarm. "I'll find them. Grace, stay calm." But calm was impossible. The past was repeating itself, except this time it wasn't Adrian taken by the children. It was the children themselves vanishing into the city, determined to force a family reunion, no matter the cost. Grace's heart thundered. She whispered, "Please don't let me lose them. Not now." The city night stretched wide, full of shadows and dangers the triplets didn't understand. They marched forward with fearless hearts, their tiny hands clutching one another, determined to finish the mission they had started weeks ago. They didn't know that Isabella's spies were already watching. They didn't know that Dr. Martin's jealousy was about to reach its boiling point. And they didn't know that Grace and Adrian would soon face the most terrifying battle of their lives, not against scandal, not against pride, but against the very real danger of losing the children they loved. The triplets whispered their vow one last time as they disappeared into the night. "No matter what, we'll bring Mama and Daddy together." But fate had other plans. The story of betrayal and reunion, of love lost and love fought for, was about to reach its most dangerous twist yet. And none of them, neither Grace, nor Adrian, nor the 3 little hurricanes, could see the storm waiting just ahead. Life often pushes families apart with misunderstandings, pride, and fear. But love, real love, demands courage. Sometimes we must let go of old pain and take the risk of trusting again, because children grow strong when they see parents united in hope. This story reminds us, forgiveness isn't weakness, it's strength. If this tale touched your heart, share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe, because more stories of love, betrayal, and redemption are on the way.